This happened about 3 months ago. I was 34 and working the night shift at a local convenience store. It wasn't a glamorous job, but I needed the money to support my studies and pay off student loans. The store was old, tucked between two abandoned buildings, and the buzzing fluorescent lights created an eerie glow that felt wrong against the dark streets. I remember it being quiet that night. I had stocked the shelves with snacks and thought to myself how typical it was, just me and the stillness. On my third night shift, I noticed the security cameras flickering. They would show static for a few moments, then go back to regular footage. At first I figured it was a glitch and ignored it, but it gnawed at me. As the nights went on, I swear the glitches got worse. Shadows appeared in the corners of the screens. I felt chills creep up my spine every time they flickered. I pushed it aside, telling myself I was tired and imagining things. The doors were locked, so what could really happen? But still I noticed that items sometimes appeared moved, even when I was sure I hadn't touched them. Then came the texts. They were from an unknown number and carried vague warnings like "something is here" or "watch the camera." I thought maybe it was a prank, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I glanced at the monitors more often, jumping at every flicker or movement. The buzz of the lights felt like a warning now. A week later, as I was restocking drinks in the cooler, I felt something brush against my shoulder. I whipped around, but nothing was there. My heart raced and I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. I wanted to call it a night, but my curiosity kept me rooted. That night the camera showed static again. I squinted at the screen. It felt like time slowed. Then there it was, a figure flickering in and out of view. I held my breath. My heart pounded. It looked like a person, but I couldn't be sure. I leaned closer, trying to catch more detail. My fingers trembled as I reached for my phone to call for help, but fear gripped me. Then the screen went dark. I was still staring at it when the lights flickered and I thought I heard something, maybe a whisper. I stood there, heart racing, unsure of what to do next. Then the lights went out completely. I froze, holding my breath. I heard a noise, footsteps. They were soft at first, then grew louder. I strained to see, but the darkness pressed against me like an unwanted weight. The buzzing of the fluorescent lights was gone. The only sound was my heart pounding in my ears. I barely noticed the chill crawling down my spine. I took a step back, ready to bolt for the door, when suddenly my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was another text. "Turn around." I felt my blood run cold. What happened next? I'm not sure. The darkness felt heavy and real, and whatever was in the store with me, I wasn't ready to meet it. I didn't want to turn around. My instincts screamed at me to run, but the text held me captive, each second stretching longer than the last. The footsteps stopped, and all I could hear was the pounding of my heart. A part of me wondered if it was a prank, one last sick joke from a bored friend, but deep down I knew the unease wasn't just in my head. Gritting my teeth, I forced myself to slowly look over my shoulder. The store was a void, a pitch-black void. I could barely make out the shapes of shelves lining the walls, but nothing moved. I told myself it was all in my head, just shadows in the dark. Then I heard it again, a shuffling sound like something being pushed across the floor. It came from the register. I took a step forward, compelled by a mix of fear and bewilderment. Why would anyone be in here? The front door was locked tight, and there were no windows in sight. If someone was inside, they had to be hiding. I edged closer, heart racing with each step. The moments felt like hours. As I reached the register, the dim glow of the emergency exit sign illuminated the area just enough for me to see. That's when I saw it, a small hand, pale and bony, gripping the edge of the counter. My breath caught in my throat. I didn't dare move. The hand twitched and I stumbled backward, my heartbeat echoing in my ears. I fumbled for my phone, trying to keep my eyes fixed on that hand. When I shone the flashlight on it, the figure of a child appeared, crouched low with hollow eyes staring back at me. "Help me," it whispered, the words drenched in despair. I froze. My mind raced. What kind of kid was by themselves in a convenience store at this hour? I felt an instinct to run, to escape this nightmare, but something in those eyes held me captive. Help me, it repeated, voice like brittle glass. There was a sense of urgency in its tone, and despite the fear, a small part of me felt sorry for it. I wanted to understand what was happening, but right then, the lights flickered back to life. I collided against a shelf and watched as the figure vanished, leaving nothing but a lingering chill in the air. I blinked, the reality of the moment crashing down on me. It was as if I had never seen it at all. Panic surged through me. I stumbled toward the front door, fumbling with the lock, but it wouldn't budge. My phone buzzed again, and I nearly dropped it in my haste. "Get out, now!" The urgency of the message punctuated the silence, and that was all it took for me to make a decision. I turned, sprinting toward the back of the store, desperate to find another exit. As I dashed for the stockroom door, I heard the faintest echo of laughter. A child's laughter. A primal fear set in. Whatever I thought I'd seen wasn't gone. It was still there, still watching. I burst into the stockroom, and just as the door slammed shut behind me, I knew deep in my gut that this was only the beginning. The stockroom was dim and cluttered, boxes piled haphazardly, casting long shadows under the flickering lights. I could still hear the child's laughter creeping in through the cracks, bouncing off the walls like an echo from a nightmare. My pulse raced as I took a few cautious steps forward, scanning the dark corners for any sign of life. I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. The air felt heavy and cold, wrapping around me like an unwelcome embrace. I glanced at my phone again. The screen glowed like a beacon in the darkness. I wanted to call for help, but who would I call? My boss? There was only so much he could do. Just then I heard it again, a soft whisper, but this time it was clearer. "Come play with me." Chills ran down my spine. I turned towards the source, my heart thumping harder than before. The sound seemed to come from behind a stack of boxes in the corner. I hesitated, debating the wisdom of moving closer. Every instinct told me to back away and get out. But curiosity tugged at my feet. I took a step closer, peering around the towering stack. It was then that I saw her again, the same pale, hollow-eyed child. This time she was standing, her small frame barely illuminated by the overhead light. "Why are you hiding?" she asked, her voice a mix of innocent and eerie sweetness. I stumbled back, nearly crashing into a shelf. I was just leaving." "Are you scared?" she asked, tilting her head as if the question fascinated her. "Yes," I admitted, my voice barely more than a whisper. "What do you want?" Her smile widened, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I just want to play." In that moment it hit me, the faint memory of laughter that was no longer echoing through the store. It felt like a game, one I didn't want to be a part of. I shook my head, backing away. "No, I can't play. I have to go." I spun on my heel, ready to race for the door. "Why don't you want to play with me?" she called after me, her tone shifting, losing that childlike sweetness. The urgency surged again, fueling my flight as I made my way to the exit door, fumbling with the knob. It didn't budge. I pounded my fists against it, panic flooding me. I was trapped. What did she want? "Let me out!" I yelled, but the only answer was a high-pitched giggle escaping the shadows, wrapping around me like a noose. Just then, the lights flickered again, and for a split second I saw more shapes in the dark corners, more small figures emerging, faces twisted in smiles I couldn't understand. My stomach sank. There were others. I turned to escape but crashed into the wall of boxes, panic clawing at my throat. My phone buzzed again, but I didn't care to look. I needed to think. I dropped to my knees, looking for any way out. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I spotted it. A small gap beneath one of the shelves. It was narrow, but it could be my only chance. I crawled toward it, my heart pounding as laughter swirled around me, enveloping me in darkness. The weight of the whispers thickened, and I could feel breath at my back. "You can't escape." I squeezed through the gap, praying this nightmare would end. As I emerged on the other side, I glanced back. And that's when I saw them all, pale faces staring, waiting for my next move. I scrambled to my feet, heart racing. The room on this side was just as dark, but at least I was briefly hidden from their view. I could hear the chorus of laughter echoing behind me. the sound a haunting reminder that I was still very much in their domain. I pressed myself against the wall, scanning the new surroundings through the dim haze. Shelves lined the space, filled with forgotten stock, but the rows were narrower here, and the shadows felt thicker. I felt as if I was being watched. I dared to breathe quietly, hoping I could make sense of my surroundings. My phone vibrated again in my pocket, and this time I pulled it out. A single bar of signal flickered on the screen. I could call for help. I quickly typed in my boss's number, my hands trembling. No sooner had I hit dial than I heard a shuffling sound behind me, followed by that same soft sing-song voice. Come out, wherever you are." I froze. My pulse thudded in my ears. This new sound was different, more than just laughter. It had an edge to it, as if the child was commanding the others to find me. Panic surged again. I quickly turned, half expecting a wall of tiny ghostly figures to close in. Instead, the area behind me was still, but I could hear whispers fading away. The question was, should I risk moving? Every fiber of my being screamed at me to run. I took a step, then another, pressing myself to the shelves, hoping to remain unseen. I passed stacks of boxes labeled seasonal items and damaged goods, their contents long forgotten. The air felt oppressive, closing in around me, but I kept moving. This was not the time to freeze. Then as I rounded a corner, I stumbled upon something strange. Among the discarded toys and broken merchandise sat a dusty old doll, its eyes too wide and lifeless, staring up at me. It looked unsettlingly similar to the child from before, only this doll had strings, a marionette. A jolt of fear shot through me as I recalled the child's voice, so sweet yet demanding. I reached down to pick it up, instinct screaming at me to leave it alone. My fingers brushed against the porcelain, and suddenly the lights flickered more violently, plunging the room into shadows. "Play with us." The chorus of voices, now much stronger, echoed around me all at once. The dolls began to line up along the shelves, one by one, their heads turned, as if they had a life of their own. I dropped the doll, and it hit the floor with a soft thud. But the sound of the impact was drowned out by the shrieks of the children whispering in delight. I cursed my curiosity, my legs propelling me forward, adrenaline kicking in as I ran deeper into the labyrinth of boxes. The laughter morphed into something darker, a sound of pure malice. "You can't hide forever. We just want to play." I stumbled into a narrow aisle, breathless, desperate to find an exit. My fingers brushed through a chain of silver that hung low from a shelf. It felt familiar. I yanked it down, realizing it was a bell, the kind that rings when someone enters a store. The sound echoed sharply through the stockroom, a signal calling for help. In that moment, the air shifted. The whispers fell silent, and I was met with an eerie stillness. I turned back slowly, fear knotting in my stomach. That's when I saw her, the child standing at the end of the aisle, her smile wider than ever. "We can play forever," she said, her eyes glinting in the dim light. Suddenly, the whole room felt like it was closing in. I realized this wasn't just about escape anymore. It was a game with higher stakes, and one wrong move could cost me everything. I could feel her gaze piercing through the shadows. The child stood there, an unwavering figure cocooned in darkness, her smile now an unsettling invitation. My heart hammered against my ribcage, urging me to flee, but I was paralyzed, caught between the instinct to run and the dreadful curiosity gnawing at my mind. "Play with us," she repeated, the cheeriness of her tone dancing mockingly in the oppressive air. How old could she be? The child looked impossibly small, yet there was something ancient in her eyes, a darkness buried deep that sent chills down my spine. I pressed my back against the shelf, weighing my options. I could try to dash past her, but it felt as if the space was starting to shrink, her presence an anchor pulling me deeper into whatever nightmare awaited. Maybe if I could distract her for just a moment, I could make it to the door on the other side of the room. But even that seemed like a hopeless gamble. "Don't you want to join us?" she teased, stepping forward with an unsettling grace. Something broke inside me. "No!" I shouted, my voice stronger than I'd expected. "I just want to go home." At that, I saw a flicker of annoyance cross her face. something dark and menacing lurking just beneath her childish facade. "You can't leave. You belong with us now," she said, her voice no longer sing-songy but laced with an authority that made my skin crawl. I turned on my heel and bolted. Each breath came in short gasps as I stumbled down the aisle, maneuvering around doll-filled shelves that seemed to taunt my escape. The laughter of the children rose again, echoing all around me, filling the space with a cacophony of jeers. I spotted a doorway just ahead, the promise of freedom shining like a beacon. I sprinted toward it, ignoring the cries of the dolls that seemed to plead for attention. But as I reached for the door handle, a sudden weight pulled me back. A force, almost tangible, wrapped around my waist, yanking me off my feet. I fell to the ground and looked back to see the dolls rearing up, their stringed limbs writhing like snakes as they came for me. The child was backing away, her grin widening to an impossible extent. "Playtime is just beginning," she sang out. With every ounce of strength, I clawed my way towards the door, desperately trying to break free from the unseen grasp. I pushed and kicked, feeling their tiny hands grasping at my clothes, their giggles turning to shrill cackles. I had to get out. Then as hope began to flicker, a crackling voice broke through the chaos. "Help! Someone help me!" I could barely comprehend it at first, but then I recognized it. My own voice echoed back at me, a warped version twisted by panic. "Stop!" I yelled, reaching for the handle one more time. I felt something cold swallow my palm, and then everything went dark. The sounds around me faded away, replaced by an oppressive silence. I knew I wasn't alone. The laughter had waned, but I could feel the eyes upon me, watching, waiting. I cursed under my breath, adrenaline still thrumming through my veins. The game had taken a new turn, and I was desperate to know the stakes. The only light came from the faint glimmer of my phone, still clutched tightly in my hand. As I took a deep breath, I realized I had to start playing their game if I ever wanted to escape. This was just the beginning. I blinked, trying to adjust to the thick darkness that surrounded me. My heart raced as I fumbled for my phone, switching on the flashlight. The beam cut through the shadows, revealing countless dolls staring back at me, their glassy eyes reflecting my fear. I shot to my feet, adrenaline surging again. Where was the child? Had she vanished along with the laughter? I turned around, scanning the room, but she was nowhere to be seen. Silence hung heavy in the air, amplified by the oppressive stillness. "Hello," I called out, my voice wavering. No answer, just the creaking of the store, an unreadable presence lurking in every corner. I moved cautiously deeper into the room, each step filled with dread. The dolls silently watched as I passed, unmoving but seemingly alive. I could swear some were closer than before, their tiny limbs shifting just slightly. Panic bubbled inside me. I had to get out. But I needed a plan. My phone buzzed and I jumped. It was a notification, but there was no signal down here. I fervently tapped the screen. No reception. Of course. I was trapped in this nightmare without help. My skin prickled as I scanned for any sign of an exit. That's when I saw it. A glimmer of light from the far side of the room. A flickering bulb struggled to stay lit above what appeared to be a child-sized table stacked with odd toys. I hesitated. Something compelled me to investigate, but every instinct screamed to run. "Just take a look," I whispered to myself. I started toward the table, determined. But the closer I got, the more I felt the weight of unseen eyes pressing down on me, the hairs on my neck standing on end. When I reached the table, I noticed something peculiar. A doll lying face down. It looked different from the others. Darker, with tangled hair and eyes that seemed almost too human. I reached for it, and instant dread washed over me. As soon as my fingers grazed its surface, the lights flickered violently. Shadows danced, and I heard faint whispers intertwining with the crackling sound of electricity. I yanked my hand back, stumbling backward. "Don't touch her," a voice hissed from the shadows. I spun around, searching desperately for the source. Who's there?" I stammered, my heartbeat echoing in my ears. The whispers grew louder, a chaotic symphony melding into one chilling warning, wrapping around me like a noose. "If you want to play, you must obey," the voice continued, mocking and sinister. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the child again, standing near the entrance. Her eyes twinkled with malicious delight. "Join me," she urged, her head cocked to one side, as if she truly believed I would follow. Just then, the lights went out completely. I stood in utter darkness, the silence punctuated by laughter that echoed all around me. My breath hitched as an overwhelming sense of dread enveloped me. I had to make a choice, fight against whatever they wanted or risk losing myself in their twisted game forever. But before I could decide, something cold brushed against my arm, and I knew I wasn't alone. The game was no longer just for fun. I had become the prize, and they were ready to play. I staggered back, my heart pounding as a chill snaked across my skin. I was trapped in the dark, and the laughter echoed louder, swirling around me like a sinister melody. My mind raced. I needed to find a way out, but the shadows felt thicker, as if they were alive and stretching to ensnare me. "Stay away," I shouted, but the sound of my voice was swallowed by the darkness. I was alone in a room filled with eyes, and the only reply was the unsettling laughter, taunting me from every corner. Determined to regain some control, I took a step forward, heart pounding like a drum, searching for anything to orient myself. My flashlight flickered dimly, revealing dolls strewn across the floor, their innocent faces twisted into expressions of glee. I pushed through the choking dread, focusing on the space around me. My foot brushed against something soft. I froze, feeling my breath catch in my throat. I bent down, reaching for the object. It was a small fabric doll, surprisingly warm to the touch. I hesitated, but a primal instinct urged me to see it. As I lifted it, the lights buzzed back to life, glaring harshly. The brightness stung my eyes, revealing the child again, her laughter sharp and clear. "You found my favorite," she squeaked, bouncing on her toes, her smile widening. It should have brought comfort, but instead it sent a shiver down my spine. "Where are you?" I called out, my voice trembling. "What do you want from me?" In reply, she pointed toward the wall at the back of the room. I squinted, noticing faint carvings etched into the wood, a series of symbols and letters that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. I took a step closer, drawn by an unexplainable urge to decipher them. Suddenly, the room plunged into darkness again. Panic surged as I clutched the fabric doll tightly. The laughter faded into an echoing silence, replaced by a soft whisper that flickered like the lights around me. "Play the game or lose the prize," it sang, each word laced with malice. I couldn't shake the bone-deep feeling that these games would only end in disaster. "Let me go," I shouted, but my words felt hollow. I realized, with a sinking heart, that I had no control over this situation. My eyes darted around in the dark, consuming every sound, every rustle. I could feel the dolls shifting again, inching toward me, their painted smiles twisting into what looked like disdain. In my gut, I knew I had to make a choice. I couldn't run. The shadows would simply pull me back. I needed to figure out the game. But before I could think clearly, something warm brushed against my leg, and I almost screamed. I shifted my weight, the fear bubbling up again, but I steadied myself. Before I could react, the lights flickered back on, this time brighter than ever. The child was now right in front of me, her grin wide, revealing sharp little teeth. "Ready to play?" she asked, her voice sweet yet dripping with malice. My grip tightened on the doll. I felt that this was the moment everything was leading to. I had to find out more, but the dread swirled heavier around me. It was time to confront whatever twisted game was unfolding, or there would be no escape. And then I looked at her eyes, those glowing eyes, realizing with growing horror that they seemed to have answers I would soon wish I hadn't uncovered. The girl's laughter echoed again, bubbling over like a stream of poisonous water. I stood frozen, unable to move or speak. Her eyes seemed to pierce through me, and every instinct warned me against her game. What kind of game could a child be playing? A sudden creak interrupted the silent tension, causing my heart to leap. I glanced around the room, half expecting something to spring forth from the dark. The dolls surrounding us felt like they were closing in, their glazed eyes fixed on me, watching, waiting. "Why won't you say yes?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. Her innocence felt like a mask over something much more sinister. "Say yes to what?" I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. Whatever this was, I needed to stay sharp. "To play with me, of course," she chirped, clapping her hands together in delight. "You have to solve the riddle." A riddle? It felt like the ground had tilted. I needed to think fast. I glanced back at the wall, searching for the carvings again. They shifted before my eyes, symbols morphing into something more complex, almost teasingly defiant. It was like they were alive, taunting me just as much as the girl did. "What's the riddle?" I asked, desperately trying to mask my anxiety. The lamp flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows that danced around us. "Find the heart of the broken, and you will be chosen," she sang, her voice swirling around me, wrapping tightly like a noose. The words twisted in my mind, making no sense but compelling me to listen. "Broken heart?" I mumbled, feeling the fear clawing its way back. I couldn't tell if she was playing at something innocent or if it was absolute madness. "Could you just tell me more?" Her smile broadened, twisting her innocent facade. "I can't do that. It's against the rules." She twirled around, her laughter turning from melodic to a cacophonous thrill. The lights flickered again, deepening the shadows, making every corner seem threatening. The moment felt suffocating. I gripped the doll tighter, trying to recall the symbols. A memory flashed. My grandmother had once told me stories of choices, of heart and sacrifice. The heart of the broken. I looked again at the dolls, now appearing more grotesque than playful. The notion struck me then. Perhaps one of them was the key. What if I had to find the one that had lost something? I was running out of time. "I need to find the heart," I shouted, pushing past the girl, searching each doll frantically. I touched their faces, feeling a chill radiate off them. Each one seemed heavier, more oppressive, as if they carried secrets I could not fathom. "You're getting closer," she squealed, and her voice dripped with excitement that trailed dangerously close to danger. I felt drawn to a doll that lay face down in the far corner. The fabric was torn, and there seemed to be a dark stain at its base. My heart raced as I hesitated before flipping it over. This had to be it. There lay something tucked beneath it, glinting subtly. I pulled the doll aside to reveal a small, intricately carved heart pendant. It shimmered in the harsh light, but as I held it close, I realized it was not just a pendant. It was pulsing softly, as though it had a life of its own. That's when I felt the temperature drop, the shadows closing in tighter around me, as if the room itself were holding its breath. The girl's laughter faded. I raised the heart before me like a shield, feeling its warmth seep into my skin, when suddenly, the lights went out completely, plunging me back into the darkness. The darkness enveloped me, thick and suffocating. I fumbled, trying to adjust to the sudden absence of light. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I stood frozen, heart pounding in the silence. Nothing could be seen, just an oppressive blackness. I clutched the heart pendant, praying its warmth would fend off whatever shadows loomed. As my eyes strained to see, I felt a strange pull toward the corner of the room, as if something was beckoning me. "Come play," the girl's voice whispered, muffled and distant. It sent a shiver down my spine. I wanted to scream, but instead I whispered back, "Where are you?" Silence answered me, heavy and stifling. I took a hesitant step forward, unsure of my next move. The ground felt uneven, and I stumbled, barely catching myself. In my mind, the darkness morphed into shapes, threats I couldn't see but could feel pressing against me. I clenched the pendant tighter, each pulsing beat echoing like a drum in the oppressive quiet. Then a soft giggle pierced through the darkness. It was close, too close. My skin crawled with dread. "Is it the heart of the broken?" she teased, her voice echoing around me, bouncing off the walls in a sinister dance. "Just tell me where you are," I shouted, desperation creeping into my tone. I felt wildly exposed, trapped in a game I didn't understand. Anger bubbled up inside me, mingling with my fear. "Find me, and maybe—" She trailed off, leaving a gap filled only by my thoughts. My mind raced, connecting her words with the riddle. I had to find something broken. I moved cautiously, clinging to the memory of where I had last seen the dolls. The faintest tingling of the pendant in my palm reminded me of the urgency. Time was slipping away. As I felt along the wall, something prickled at the back of my neck. A cold breath whispered past me, sending goosebumps racing across my skin. I whipped around, but nothing was there. Panic surged within me, curling its way tighter around my chest. And then I heard it. A soft, deliberate rustling from within the darkness. It was alive, whatever it was. The shadows shifted like phantom shapes, darting away when I tried to focus on them. "You're close," the girl sang from somewhere unseen. But the laughter was different now, taunting and mocking, every note sharp like glass. Suddenly, a beam of light pierced the dark like an arrow, illuminating the corner where the dolls sat. I squinted against the glare, my breath hitching in my throat. Shapes moved within the light and my heart dropped. The dolls appeared to shift, their faces twisting in expressions I hadn't noticed before. Pain, despair, and an edge of madness. That's when I saw her. She stood among them, eyes gleaming, hair frizzing with static electricity. "You found it!" she exclaimed, circling the collection of dolls. "But do you know what to do with it?" The question hung in the air, heavy and foreboding. I had no answers. I felt the dread swell, urging my next move. But just as I summoned the courage to speak, a hand grabbed my shoulder from behind. I spun around. The stockroom was cloaked in a suffocating darkness that swallowed me whole. I barely had time to process the icy grip on my shoulder before a whisper grazed my ear, sending a jolt of terror coursing through me. "It's time to play," the voice hissed, all sweet innocence stripped away. Heart racing, I wrenched myself free and spun to face whatever was lurking behind me. My heart pounded like a war drum in my chest as I knelt to search for the low glimmer of the heart pendant. Before my fingers grazed its surface, I could hear the child's laughter, echoing through the dark like a siren's call, wrapping around me with an all-too-familiar dread. "Find the heart of the broken and you will be chosen," her voice taunted, the rhythm turning sinister. I felt the heat of anger mixing with fear, the puppet strings of the game pulling me this way and that. "Enough games," I shouted, my voice shaking but determined, resonating fiercely in the silence. I straightened up, regaining my footing. With sudden resolve, I waved the pendant, its warmth radiating at my command. "I'm not playing anymore!" The room shifted, the shadows stretching and recoiling as if something ancient and powerful was awakening. I could sense a change in the atmosphere, something stirring in the dark. The chilling laughter faded, the silence growling, and my heart jostled within me at the prospect of facing whatever lay hidden. Boy, was I wrong to think I was alone in this. So many outlines lurked behind the veil of black, but I had to focus. Shouts and gasps welled in my throat as I thundered towards the wall of dolls, each twist of their painted smiles igniting an urgency in my core. "Please let me go," I begged, my voice cracking. "I don't want to play." In an unexpected whirlwind, the dolls shifted again, their faces a storm of dismay, almost as if they'd chosen to betray the child. I stepped toward the corner, where the pendant pulsed with an unseen force, guiding me like a lighthouse. Snapshot complete, I thought, recalling the glowing heart from before. Reaching out, I grasped the pendant and aimed it at the wall. A surge of warmth flowed through me, and the darkness seemed to falter just for a moment. Suddenly I heard it, a soft sound that resembled muffled cries. I turned quickly toward it. One of the dolls lay on its side, its face cracked and weary. The very same dark stain marred its porcelain skin, drawing my attention. There was something about it that felt alive with despair. In an instinctive move, I bent down and lifted the doll, feeling the heat radiating off it, even through the coolness of the air. "Is this the heart?" I whispered, an ember of hope flickering within me. Those hollow eyes looked up and the voice of the child broke through once more, edged with frayed irritation. "Don't you see, silly? Playtime can't always go as planned." "Then let's change the game," I screamed, lifting the heart pendant to my chest in defiance. The room trembled, and I felt the weight of unseen eyes boring through me. The darkness pulsed and expanded, but instead of fear, I felt a wild rush of strength. My resolve tightened like a coiled spring. "Enough!" I shouted. "I choose when this ends." In that instant, the heart in my hand blazed to life, casting a golden light that tore through the dark. It illuminated the faces of the dolls, revealing their anguish and despair, their eyes glimmering like lost souls. "Stop!" the girl shrieked, her tone shifting from playful to desperate, an echo of fading laughter spiraling through the air. "You aren't supposed to do that." The light flared even brighter, and for a moment, I felt the presence of something vast and unyielding. I could almost sense the trapped, broken spirits of the dolls entwined with the child. The truth loomed between us, flickering just out of reach. The darkness began to retract, fraying at the edges, exposing a doorway pulsing with light. The dolls trembled, their laughter turning into cries of panic. The child lashed out, a desperate flurry of movement, but I stood firmly, the heart pendant steady in my grip. "Let them go," I shouted, refusing to surrender. In response, the forms of the dolls began to dissolve into trails of silver mist, echoes of laughter twisting into a desperate plea for release. I focused, channeling the pendant's warmth, willing my own heart to free those bound to their game. Everything erupted into blinding light, and I felt myself being pulled toward the doorway with a force that could not be denied. Just as I crossed the threshold, caught between the blinding brilliance and the howls of protest, a stray thought scraped across my mind. Would I ever truly escape the haunting echoes of their laughter? The light enveloped me, consuming the remnants of darkness, and as I stepped through, the world shifted around me. The next moment found me outside the store, gasping for breath under a sky filled with stars, cool air washing over me like a cleansing wave. But as I turned back, eyeballing the still darkened store, a sense of unease washed over me as something twigged in the back of my mind, a lingering question that would forever torment me. Had I truly escaped, or was I merely a pawn in a game without end? 3 months later, I would hear whispers of a child seen near the convenience store, luring those foolish enough to wander too close. I still think about it sometimes. I've never been back to that neighborhood, and I begrudge myself for not knowing whether the dolls had found a new player, or if they were merely waiting. Always waiting. I moved to a different city, but even now sometimes I can still hear the echoes of their laughter in my dreams. A chilling reminder that darkness knows how to play, and it never truly forgets.